Good. First, I've got an entourage with me. I've got Benjamin Boyle here as our mayor for the day. So I told him if questions get difficult, I'll call in the lefty and bring him up here and buy some time so I know how to answer one of y'all's questions. All right. So, so glad to have him, and he'll get to hang out with me this morning and PPD this afternoon. So happy to have you here. So let's get through a few things. I assume you'll have some questions about. Obviously, we'll take any questions you have afterwards. Just got this update quickly. Trash pickup today, maybe a little bit delayed. If you see that, we had a couple trucks down for maintenance. It will get picked up after hours. So if you get home at 3 or 4 o'clock today and you're a Monday pickup, didn't get picked up, leave it out there. Thursday and Friday loop should not be impacted, but we just might be running a little bit late today. So
Brian understanding you to pick it up.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. All hands on deck here. Yeah. So I was gonna let him know a little more diplomatic way, Rick. But so yeah, we do everything here. Downtown noise update. They worked June 7th and 8th. 11 exhaust violations, 3 loud music. We had a DUI arrest and a criminal citation for a license plate that was on a vehicle that was not supposed to be, or was supposed to be on another vehicle. So I believe we're at last count. Chief Randall said we think we were right around 125 citations over those few weeks, which I would consider to be pretty impactful, and I think that shows. Yes, DIB had invested in some of those resources that we couldn't otherwise or I know we couldn't otherwise do consistently, but I do think that you see that it shows that it was an issue and continues to be an issue, and it's something that we'll continue to work with DIB on. So sometimes you have these things, and you may think that they're bigger issues than they are. When in reality, I think what we're seeing is we've had significant, again, when we're talking about over 100 in just a matter of a few weeks. I think that hopefully we'll see some change in behavior and following the rules. So excited to see that we're getting some results, and we've even heard, again, just anecdotally from some of the downtown business owners and folks down there that they've noticed a difference just in terms of people hearing about that. We are watching it, and that they've started to see some change in behavior, so that's good. I want to mention we'll provide with you. I did receive John DeCarmine's report back on low barrier shelter, so we'll get that about 25-page report. We'll get that to you. Jason will get that to you. The gist of it is that as expected, to do this right, there's an expense, and I believe he had proposed a 60-bed and a 100-bed option. And again, you guys can read all the research and detail that went into it. But at the end of the day, we're looking at about you'll see for 60 bed about a $1.7 million annual operation, and with 100 bed over $2 million. I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head. And his presumption is that whoever the operator would be would raise about 20%, and the other 80% would come from everyone else. That doesn't mean the city of Pensacola or the county. I think if you look around the country, you see things like hospitals, for example, that have a lot of costs associated with homelessness. You get community partners together. So what does that mean from here? Obviously, we'd love. By the way, that number does not include capital upfront costs. That's operational cost only. So you guys can put 2 and 2 together. You understand the situation we're in. We're looking at $1.3 million of static money for ARPA, not recurring, static. And this is precisely why we did this study, is because what we didn't want to do is run ourselves under a time crunch, into buying a building and moving forward with something of which we're not prepared to see through. We got to, now that we have this report and we've distributed it to the county, we've distributed it to some others. We'll probably just kind of have a reconvening conversation with some of those community leaders and say, even if it's not something that's going to happen this year, if we now have a roadmap to get there, how interested are we in having it? But again, when I received the report, I'd love for the cost to be as little as possible, right? I mean, we want to get this done. But it was reassuring to have the report, and at the level of detail that it is, that number one, we can feel confident in, if we do a low barrier shelter, the direction that we're moving, because we know we've got the data and we've got the research. But secondly, that we don't rush ourselves into something that will fail. And so it's going to probably require, at that kind of cost, a bigger conversation that is not going to be handled solely by the city or solely by the county. And you see all sorts of mixes of how this is handled across the country, whether it's hospital systems, healthcare systems, large businesses, the business community. Actually, just right over in Fort Walton, I believe the business community raises about $500,000 a year to support their low barrier shelter. So this is an issue for all of us as a community. And it's not going to solely the government's job to be able to try to reduce homelessness and provide positive outcomes. So we'll look at this. I think we'll digest the report that you guys will see, and then make some decisions from there. And the two key decisions being, one, how do we move forward with this roadmap? And number two is, what do we decide to do with the ARPA funding that has a timeline on it? And make sure that we make the best decision we can on both counts. So I think for this week, we've discussed. I know I've discussed stormwater fee. Obviously, that's going to be on the agenda on Thursday. Again, I won't go over a lot of the similar details that we talked about before, but happy to take any questions that you have. You saw us mention the lot 4 and 5 extension is also as an add-on. We're looking for another 30 days. We have gone back. At last count, I think we've had 7 turns of the lease back and forth. That's not Inspire's issue or Adam or city attorney's issue. It's just this is the definition of a moving target. And what I mean is, this is a negotiation that goes back years. And you guys have reported on it. The ebbs and flows of not being interested in it at all, needing structured parking, now not needing structured parking, interest rates, cost of construction. So by no fault of either party, this is the definition of a living document is trying to nail down something that is palatable for the city and something that's palatable for Inspire. So we feel that we're close, but there's still some things to work through. And so the option was expiring June 30th. As you guys know, we don't have a second meeting in June, so this allows us to get to that July meeting. So I would expect this is sink or swim time. I think we're either going to get a deal done or we'll go back to the drawing board, one of the two on lots 4 and 5. Because we're talking about it, lot 7 was under the same June 30th. But remember, we were able to reignite those conversations. Those really were secondary conversations in the previous administration and as an early part of this administration, because the idea was that 7's viability was contingent upon the structured parking at 4. We now have figured out a solution that is not the case based on our conversations with both parties. So we have moved ahead conversations with Valencia on parcel 7. So they also have a June 30th, but I believe, and I'll confirm this, but I believe they have their own extension that Inspire did not have. So the reason you're not seeing a 30-day extension with Valencia the same way you're seeing with Inspire is I believe they already had something built in that has already extended it past the June 30 deadline. So, but our conversations move forward with both, and more to come pretty soon. Again, we'll know something in July on whether that's viable or not. The other add-on item from yesterday's agenda conference was the airport lot. You guys are familiar, and I don't need to explain the why. It's because we need airport parking yesterday. So we are working on those 400 spaces. You'll see there's a financial incentive to get completed by November 15th. And I want to certainly appreciate Brad Highnote and our public works team, our airport team, for realizing the need. And we had to shuffle some things around because only having one meeting a month meant if we missed this and didn't have it as an add-on, that's 30 more days before we start, and a very high likelihood that that's not completed in time. So I appreciate everybody being flexible on the internal side to make sure that we got this to the council this month so we could be ready to go. If you recall, half of the funding, the $2.2 million, is from FDOT, and we don't receive that until July 1st. So we would have received it July 1st and then been waiting around a few more weeks to just even start the project if we had not gone ahead and rushed that through. So I appreciate the council taking that up and understanding the need there, and hopefully we'll be done before Thanksgiving. We just got another traffic report. Same month last year, we're up 17%. That's been pretty consistent. We continue to be 17% up. Fiscal year to date, our passenger count, so that would be October 1 to now versus last year, we're up 13%. And so far this fiscal year, since October 1, we've had more than 1.8 million people move through the airport, which is 218,000 more people than this time last year. So you could do the math, say October to June, divide 218 into whatever that is, 7-8 months. We're talking about 25, 30, 35,000 people a month more than we had the year before. It also, you may see something on the agenda that says, well, what's this lease with TSA? That's a clerical. We lease the TSA the space within the airport. We had to clean up. Instead of it being a rectangle of this many feet by this many feet, we're just modifying it. Because TSA is such a hot topic right now, when someone sees that, I don't want to sound like that it's something anything other than quite literally the geography of what we're leasing to them. So that's on the agenda, and I believe it's on consent, but that's on the agenda today. It has nothing to do with TSA operations and all the other things that we've been talking about. Great event at Protecting Places of Worship yesterday. Great turnout, and I shouldn't be surprised. Our faith leadership and is amazing and has such deep roots. As I mentioned to our Department of Justice leadership that came in yesterday morning and met with me, before then the event was at 5 o'clock at Bayview. But that it's one thing to say we've got great churches, great synagogue, great places of worship, but it's another here, that we have such deep roots and such foundational roots within every denomination across our city, and how important faith leadership is. And so we really appreciate it. It was about 200 people, and the FBI presented. And it was all focused around understanding hate crimes, and also understanding how to keep congregations and in churches and places of worship safe. And so it was the easiest when they approached us about it, and Chief Randall was a big part of that at PPD. When they approached us about it, it was the easiest decision. We all care more about public safety than anything, and certainly we should expect to feel safe when we go to worship and go to our church or our synagogue, our temple. That we should expect that. And so I do appreciate all those federal agencies coming in and helping us be a safer place in Pensacola today than we were yesterday. And not only was it that, but they are having continuing resources that they've made available to our local places of worship. Whether it's training, whether it's potential grant opportunities, they were able to give them a lot of that. It was obviously closed to the public and closed to media because of the sensitivity of the conversations around, as an example, talking about how, with active shooter and things like that. Obviously, that's very sensitive and not something that we want conveyed out to everybody in the public. So I appreciate, the media respecting that. Well, man, I got all sorts of stuff that I'll jump to questions. Obviously, I want to mention, you heard Kerrith, our city administrator, mention yesterday that he's resigning for family reasons, and certainly we support that, and family comes first. It does in my house, and it does in Kerrith's house. I'm not going to get in, those are his details to share, and whatever he's comfortable with sharing, but I'm very appreciative for everything that Kerrith has done here. Having a steady hand that has been in the previous administration and this administration, I'll always be grateful for. He's learning as he becomes city administrator, and I'm learning as I become mayor. So we've had those experiences together, and I know he has great respect throughout the city organization through our city departments. And I'm very, very appreciative for his efforts and wish him the best, in his future, and certainly wish the best for his family. So With that, I will take any questions that you have. Yeah.
Mayor, would you give us a review rundown again on Valencia lot 7, right?
Mhm.
What the parking vision is now? You mentioned it before,
Yeah.
but I think it.
Yeah, so the conversation being had now, and we're still negotiating it, it is to provide some exclusive spaces within the existing lot, that the big lot that's out there on parcel 4 right now, that we have enough capacity. Understand, the Maritime office building has, we have parking obligations, right? So the Maritime office building has, I think, 200 spaces from 9 to 5. Obviously, the Wahoos have, for employees and for game days, they have. So all we're doing is the math on what's available to us right now that's not spoken for. And sometimes it's exclusive, sometimes it's non-exclusive. A perfect relevant example would be, I get asked a lot about the 200 spaces we're providing for the pickleball project. Well, we aren't providing. What we're saying is that 200 spaces will exist. That does not mean that those are exclusive use only for pickleball. We just can't come in and take all of the parking away and build buildings, and then there's no more. Correct. So same idea here is that we think that what will be proposed as we continue to work through and Inspire is that they would go with parcel 5 first, and that there would be some parking that would be contained on 5 that would allow us to in essence kick the can down the road on any potential structured parking, because we'd be able to meet our obligations. So we're negotiating number of spaces and the lease rate for those spaces with Valencia right now, and I think it brings up a bigger question for our community, and I think many communities right now, because you guys have reported on it, how many hotels we've got threatened and proposed and all of that downtown. What is the right count for a number of spaces? For example, a hotel that is off the interstate, well, chances are the people that are staying at that hotel drove there. I think we've all, maybe experienced going to a city and maybe staying in a hotel downtown. You may not drive there. You may take an Uber there. I mean, that's usually what I do, unless I have a need for a vehicle, to get out to somewhere, further out. So what is the right mix of number of spaces, exclusive spaces needed for a hotel in 2024? I don't know that we have a precise answer on that, but I think even the hoteliers are starting to have that conversation and say, maybe we don't need 1 point something spaces per room like we used to, because of the ease of accessibility of getting around town. So anyway, we're working with them, but regardless, we are going to be able to find ourselves in a place where hypothetically parcel 5 could run. If we can come to an agreement with them, we could have 5 and 7 be developed at the same time without having to get to structured parking. Now, then when it comes to 4, obviously, when 4 happens, that is quite literally where the parking lot is located. So then we would have to have the bigger conversation about public-private partnership, shared parking, structured, all of that. But I'll be happy to get to that moment when we got 2 projects in the air, in 5 and 7, and then we've got to start talking about structured parking at 4. That would be a good thing.
When you're doing the calculation for spaces at 5,
Mm-hmm.
you're also including the Maritime Park, right? Park users, the amphitheater, all the events that are happening down there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, no, we're not. When we say we're counting parking spaces, that doesn't mean our goal is to make all spaces exclusive, and that means we have enough room. Yes, we have. There is no scenario. Again, let's use Maritime office building. Well, they have 200 spaces until 5 o'clock. And as you know, you go in that parking lot, they're not marked. It's just we have to provide 200 parking spaces. So from a agreement long ago. So yes, of course, it's got to be functional, and those are conversations as Maritime continues to evolve, that we look for opportunities to park. The other bigger question is Bruce Beach. That's another factor in this, and making sure that, as phase 2 will have some parking on the west side of Bruce Beach, but that's something that we're considering as well.
Is there any plans, right? I know City Administrator Fiddler announced yesterday that he's running, but are there any plans for do a search, or what are your plans?
Yeah, I mean, it's, obviously, Kerrith let me know this, late last week, and he notified staff and everything on yesterday. So we haven't, made a lot of tangible headway, in terms of what next, job description, all those types of things. So we will be having those conversations this week. But I think it's safe to say that we'll be doing a national search. I think that's safe to speculate at this point.
On the low barrier shelter,
Uh-huh.
obviously, do you think that the ARPA funding, if we don't get a shelter built with this funding, do you think that will be a failure?
No, I think that's always been our goal. A failure would be take the ARPA funding, force feed it into a low barrier shelter, and it shut down in 6 months. I would consider that a failure. I think being pragmatic and smart about how we use these remaining dollars. I mean, understand, this used to be $3.5 million, and that's not how many things stayed open, how many services were provided, how many meals were provided with those funds. It's easy to say, well, that money's gone. Well, yeah, but it also, helped some services along the way. I think what our job is to take the remaining funding we have and have the greatest impact on reducing homelessness. So let's give an example. Let's speculate for a minute that obviously 1.3 million may just be enough for capital, and we haven't even started on operational, right? And to expect for us to come together as a community in the next 5 months and all agree on what the cost is and all, that's going to be a tall order. I think that would be a tall order for me to go ask that, to hospital systems, businesses, county, grants, those types of things. So what would the next alternative be if we feel like that this the timing is not right on this 1.3? The fail-safe is to continue to do what we're doing right now, which is like the motor lodge, like other things, is what we know is going to be an absolute must for reducing homelessness is for places for people to transition out of, even if it's a high barrier shelter, if it's Waterfront Mission, if it's any other shelter, faith-based shelter, regardless of whether that's as impactful as a low barrier. Those folks, when they do get on their feet and get a job and all that, they need somewhere to live. And we are grossly under not meeting that need right now. So I'm not saying that that's what we're definitely going to do. We've got to have a community conversation, but along the line of your questioning, well, what if, would it be a failure if we didn't use that funding? What I'd say is we're going to figure out how to adapt this funding to make the greatest impact that's successful. I would rather move this 1.3 million to transitional housing, even though that's what the county said they're going to do. I'd rather do that now than either lose the funding or some half-hearted, effort at a low barrier shelter that isn't successful. That would be the biggest failure of all.
And that funding has to be encumbered by the end of the year?
Encumbered by the end of the year, yeah. Anything else?
And then, I
Yeah.
guess on that same topic, is the idea to find someone to operate the shelter or create a new nonprofit organization to operate the shelter?
No, yeah, our goal would not be to operate the shelter ourselves. I think we've taken the baton on this in the sense that we needed to understand exactly what it took, which I think what you'll see is you've got the real truth in front of you of what it takes coming from someone who's operating one significantly larger than what's expected here, who's come in and researched, and we didn't ask John to look at any other aspect of homelessness. People will say, oh, another homeless reduction consultant. That's all we said is you have done this successfully for years, worked with the city and county, gotten private funding. Someone who's actually done it in this state, come tell us what it would take. So I think that's as credible of a report of what it actually takes as possible. And you'll see he mentions in the report, he says very clearly that, and I'm paraphrasing, but don't do this in a half-hearted way. If it's going to take time to get it and you got to just do 60 beds, then do 60 beds right. Because what will end up happening is not only will we lose faith as a community, as citizens, if we were to do it not to the level it needs to be and say it's not impactful, but it also affects the homeless community. I mean, if the folks within the homeless community of which we're saying, hey, we've got opportunity for you, but the reputation becomes it's not really helpful, then what did we solve? Now we have people that are unwilling to go there, which defeats the entire purpose. So, and he, again, outlines that very articulately, in the report, but, we've got, that's why it has to be done right. And that's why I was not going to rush into. The easy thing to do would have been take this, go buy a building, right now. And look, I mean, that it's not that would be a failure in and of itself, but other than having the building and having the fixtures and having whatever 1.3 million could get us, I mean, that's a step in the right direction. But if it took us another year and a half or 2 years, in essence, we'd have the building, but we wouldn't have, anything else. I wouldn't rule that out. If the right building came along or something like that, and we thought that was the best next step, that's what needs more analysis. Whether it's transitional housing, whether there's some tangible, strong step forward that we can take, and that might be a conversation with John, in follow up, is to say, is it better to go ahead and get a building and a structure, and then we work on the rest before we open anything. But no, we have no desire at the city to be the operator of a low barrier shelter. Our goal is to put someone who knows exactly how to do this, and even better, whoever that is now has a pretty clear roadmap of what we expect based on John's report. And again, I reiterate, it even said, hey, you should expect the operator to raise 20% of the funds, as an example. If we just hired an operator, we may not have set an expectation on that, right? We've got a roadmap and a game plan, and I would encourage any operator, regardless of where the status is, to look at that. And what they should expect moving forward is this is what we look as the blueprint of how we would want to help support a low barrier shelter. Yep.
Mayor, how are you going to organize for this community conversation on the low barrier shelter?
Don't know yet. We just have gotten the report recently. I don't know. There's a couple schools of thought for that. You could start with, I think there's an argument to be made to start with the folks in the organizations that would be the most likely to fund it. Whether that, again, I use healthcare systems as probably the prime example. The chamber, something like that. We did, if you recall, several months ago, I spoke at. We appreciate the chamber had put on a event at the Rex where we talked to the business community. We surveyed the business community on how they felt about it, and so we've started that conversation with business owners as a whole. And so we haven't quite strategized yet. We've just kind of finished. I read the report. I'm trying to think, either Friday or over the weekend. Read through in one sitting. So so we're still digesting it, and trying to figure that out. So I don't know that it's ready that we're going to have some wide-ranging public conversation about it yet. What I probably want to understand is what is the appetite for some of these key stakeholders that would be funding it. I kind of want to hear from them, and say, I mean, are you looking at us as this is going to be solved only at the city, or is there some potential win-win for all of us to help reduce homelessness and reduce costs at healthcare institutions, things like that. So, I think we'll probably start small in that respect.
Who are the stakeholders? Obviously, county government, I assume. You mentioned healthcare.
Yeah, I mean, I think, we've proven we're willing to be opportunistic about any kind of, whether it's HBA with Community Land Trust, or how we find funding for the airport terminal, or how we attack that, or Baptist Hospital. We're willing to be creative and think outside the box of, who does this positively impact? Who wants to have a positive impact on reducing homelessness in our community? So, I don't have a definitive list yet, but you keep hearing me mention, because it's probably the most common, is whether it be health insurance companies and or healthcare companies that certainly have a vested interest in taking care of some of these folks, and also that could be a potential pain point for them. So I think right now I'm thinking more about the business community, the philanthropic community, and the healthcare community is probably where I would begin. But again, more to come on that. Those are just kind of my half thought through ideas as I've digested this initial report. So I wouldn't say any of that's definitive right now. We're not having a meeting next week about it. We're just kind of trying to understand it, and as you guys report it and cascade that out, I expect I'll be hearing from other folks with other ideas as well, and we'll certainly be receptive to those.
Mayor, you've gotten from staff a fairly frank report on the LDC, Development Code update. What's your take on that? It seems, I don't think there was any surprises in there, but do you think that's a report that can be take action on?
Sure. I think that's the next step as we've outlined from the beginning. I think the first thing we want to do is to have outside experts who understand the state of Florida come in and say, this doesn't make sense. And it's not all highly controversial or potentially controversial items. A lot of it is we have duplicative paragraphs that say, here's the section about, that you heard him mention in the agenda conference. Here's this section about trees, except in these other sections it also mentions trees. So if I'm the developer or I'm the builder, which one am I following? Is it in this section or this section? So there's even very mundane, clerical type things that don't make much sense that need to be cleaned up, and that's probably, honestly, a majority of what the cleanup is of that audit. However, of course, there's those other things, mention of better clarity on affordable housing, incentives, that type of stuff. I agree with that. Conversations about thickening neighborhoods and whether, a duplex can go on that type of lot. Those are bigger conversations to be had as we engage the community. So, there's a significant expense to that too. It's about a 2-year process to start phase 2 of that, the implementation. Because we meet with the community, we have outreach, we make sure that we're meeting with the folks that this impacts. I thought a really intriguing thing that they brought up, both in the agenda conference and in our meeting previously, was uniquely to us is where does urban end and suburban begin within the city? And just think about that, how urban development looks. And then where's the line, where suburban development starts to make more sense. And you can think of areas like 9th Avenue, 12th Avenue that are very car dependent, that start to have that suburban, larger lots, quarter-acre lots with single houses on it. And not that you need a clearly definitive line, but when you're starting to talk about code changes, you need to understand, if in a more urban setting, X may make sense, and in a more suburban setting, it may not. And so that's going to be an interesting conversation is, draw the line for urban and suburban within 39 square miles of the city of Pensacola. So I'm looking very much forward to that. There is an expense. We've got to go figure that out. That's not something that's budgeted, at the moment. We got to work through that. But it should help budget-wise because it is a longer process. If it needed to go across a couple budgets, it's something that we could do.
Mayor, on Portland Loose.
Yeah.
2 supposed to be installed this month. Where are we on those?
Yeah, so you guys have seen the one at Bruce Beach, the first one installed. The other 2, we're good to go. They're on order, except for we bid out the installation of those, and it was outrageously expensive. Might go get out of this business and get into concrete so anyway, we're going to bid it again. We're talking about 6-figure installation and only got 1 bid. So that could have been on us in terms of making sure it's advertised correctly. Our expectation is more in the $30,000 range to install one, not $130. So, we'll look at that again. So, but they are on order. They're on the way. Hopefully we can, get that turned.
We only got 1 shipped to us?
No. We've got. I don't remember exactly. If David was here, I could tell him exactly. We've ordered 5,
Right.
but we've been holding off on them sending them to us because we don't want them just sitting in a, under the interstate or in a storage area if we don't have to. So the order is done. It's just whether I believe we've got 2 coming to us, if they aren't already here, to be honest. But we were a little discouraged by the. You build a house for the cost of those 2 concrete pads. I think we need to probably reassess. So we'll probably get that bid back out, or me and Brad are going to go learn how to pour concrete real quick at that rate. Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, I hear you. Now I understand. Yeah. You can pay for the next 30 days. You're fine. Yeah. We won't impede on your business. Yep.
Here, one last thing here. Is TSA having unusual problems with this new modern equipment that they've installed? I personally have been through there twice, where the machines are breaking down in the queue, and that creates momentarily chaos that backs up. What is the airport manager telling you?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm going to meet with Brian Cahill, who's our local. He's our regional representative out of Jacksonville. We're trying to meet next week. He had reached out, him and his leadership team again, that we'd already met once. I'll ask that question. I don't want to speculate if it's something that's a nationwide issue. It is an issue for us. It's what was mentioned yesterday. The long line that we had yesterday was not. We had full staffing in place. It was that we had 2 machines down, and then we got a 3rd machine up, and then by 7:30 a.m. we had no line. So it's unfortunate, and of course. From this position, I wish we took a photo every morning, because the next 31 mornings when we have no line, we won't take a photo of that. We'll just take a photo of the line, which is part of the gig. But we have significantly improved across the board those wait times. I think we got to 51 minutes which is not good, but we got to 51 minutes. That's what it was on Monday morning. But again, an hour before. An hour after, we're all clear back to, so we just had that one bad hour with those 2 machines down, but we had the staffing there, and obviously unfortunate. That doesn't. My explanation isn't going to make someone who may have missed a flight or been really late for a flight feel any better. So I understand that they should expect us to do the best job that we can, and but I can confidently say we are as diligent as possible, staying on top of that and staying on top of TSA, and I am overall. Very pleased with their response since we sent that letter and in what's happening, that they've really assessed those needs and not only brought in the temporary folks, but they've actually seen the need so much that they're hiring. All of our eyes are open that we're actually now hiring more full-time people to make sure that we can sustain this better performance that we had. So I hate it when I see those long lines, and I know it's super frustrating. We're all traveling, and we got anxiety enough getting to where we need to go, and then you see a long line. We've all been there, and I've had family members miss flights in the last 60 days, including with me. So that's frustrating. I do know we have a TSA, by the way. I think July 8th through 12th is another one of the TSA pre-check weeks at the airport. I'm not sure if it's already full, Amy, but it probably is. But I do know they accept walk-ins, so that's something that you can call and stay on top of to get signed up for pre-check. So that's a timely, unfortunate, but also timely opportunity to tell folks if you do want to get pre-check and make it as easy as possible. That is coming here next month. So we're doing the best that we can. I'll meet with them. I'll find out, about the. More about the machines and equipment. The other thing we're going to talk about is, we have a little frustration with, we tell people to get there 2 hours before, except our first flight is at, 5:20, which means we tell people to get there at 3:20, but TSA isn't open. So it doesn't open till about 4 o'clock. Well, then also our gate agents aren't there till 4. So is it the gate agents aren't there because of TSA, or TSA isn't there because the gate agents aren't? So we're trying to work through that as well, and we believe that that would be yet another positive impact to that early morning rush of those 5 and 6 a.m. flights if we actually had people there 2 hours before, as we are telling those passengers to arrive 2 hours before. So many things to continue to discuss. Anything else? All right. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.